Welcome back. Before he left on his well-deserved vacation, Major Garrett spoke with the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Greg Casar of Texas. Here's that conversation.
Congressman, thanks for joining us. I need to consult my notes because this list keeps getting longer. Mayoral candidate in New York City, who's the comptroller of that city, arrested. Mayor of Newark, New Jersey, arrested. Sitting California senator, detained. A judge in Wisconsin, arrested and then prosecuted. A labor leader in California, arrested. All by federal immigration authorities, all under allegations that they either questioned too much, interfered too much, or in some cases, harmed federal immigration officials. How do you sum all of this up?
We're entering a scary time under the Trump administration where we're not just talking about the rights of immigrants being violated, we're talking about the rights of everyone being violated. In the case of U.S. Senator Padilla, Mr. Padilla was just doing his job, asking the DHS secretary tough questions that she'd been refusing to answer about U.S. citizens, and they arrested him. They threw him to the ground and arrested him. In the case of New York City Comptroller, the elected CFO of the biggest city in America, he was arrested, and you could see this on video, just for asking, hey, do you all have a warrant? Do you have a warrant for arresting this person? And he was arrested. To me, it's clear that the Trump administration is wanting to intimidate anyone who disagrees with them. They want to silence voices that are voices of dissent by saying, well, you could get arrested or you could get hurt without consequence. And that is growing autocracy in this country. And I think the way you fight back against growing autocracy is by firing up the engines of grassroots democracy. It's a time for people to speak out, to peacefully demonstrate, and to vote with their feet, to vote in local office, and to make very clear that this is endangering the rights of all of us. Every single one of us has a right to say, do you have a warrant? Every single one of us has a right to ask people in power questions without being thrown to the ground.
The Attorney General and the DHS Secretary say with some relish no one is above the law whenever asked about these various instances and episodes. That is a refrain that they want to bring back because it was used from their perspective against then-candidate Trump in the 2024 and 2023 years. They say you prosecuted Trump, meaning we're going to prosecute you. Nobody's above the law, and if you come anywhere close to violating the law, we're going to interpret it as such, arrest you, and prosecute you, possibly.
Look, this is gaslighting at its finest. Of course, if you significantly and truly are breaking the law, like, for instance, agitating January 6th rioters to break into the United States Capitol, desecrate the Capitol and try to kill members of Congress, and then attack police officers who subsequently die, of course, there's a real problem with that. But going and asking a cabinet secretary a simple question, or going and asking on behalf of a constituent, do you have a warrant for this constituent? That is not breaking the law. In fact, it's just doing our job. So we can't get accustomed to or consider that it's normal for the President of the United States and his administration to gaslight us in this way.
You mentioned grassroots politics. You will be with Bernie Sanders, if I understand it correctly, in Amarillo and Fort Worth for what you hope will be large rallies. Why?
I'm doing something a little different in Texas here with Senator Bernie Sanders. We are going and visiting Republican-controlled areas of Texas, going and talking to those Texans who feel left behind, frankly, by both political parties. So we're going to the Rio Grande Valley, where in McAllen, now that's a Republican-controlled congressional district, an area of the country that's been heavily covered because of Latino voters, that many of whom started voting for Donald Trump but now are starting to have their regrets. We're going to go talk to them. Amarillo, Texas, a place that so many politicians skip over from both parties. We're going to go and talk to those folks who feel like they've been left behind. And they're in the heart of Texas and Fort Worth, sort of in rodeo country, going and talking to voters who are like, look, we may disagree on this social issue or that one, but right now the billionaires are taking our money and they're taking our health care, and they want to see a Democratic Party that's willing to fight back. So we're going and talking about how this doesn't just have to be red versus blue. It can be the billionaires versus everyone else. And we're going to talk to everyone else in the country and everyone else in Texas, especially places that have been left behind.
You spoke to issues related to war powers, the presidency, and consultation with Congress and the Biden administration. You are now doing so in the Trump administration. Why?
We have to be very clear that the United States Constitution says that the President of the United States, no matter their political party, cannot send our American men and women into war without having a conversation with the country and without having the consent of the United States Congress. That's the law. And that's why I, even as a Democrat, would sign on every time and vote every time for resolutions that said President Biden could not unilaterally go to war. That way, when there's President Trump, I'm not being a hypocrite by saying he cannot unilaterally go to war. We, not so long ago, had a diplomatic deal, an agreement with Iran that kept us from going to war and kept Iran from having a nuclear weapon. We should pursue every path to diplomacy to prevent a nuclear weapon from existing in Iran, rather than risking sending our American women and men who signed up for the service to go risk their lives, not just for one operation, but as we've learned in the Middle East, when you get started, you could be there for years, or even worse, a generation. And so we should not just quickly allow any one president or the prime minister of a foreign nation to set our timeline or get our troops involved in a war. That's not the way the Constitution works.
Congressman, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.